Alex and I are going to talk about the hardware show for 2022. This is Alex Dinsmore, our Chief Strategy Officer at Script to Screen. My name is Ken Carey. We're the co-founders here and Executive Creative Director. And so we like having this little forum to talk about kind of what's happening in direct-to-consumer marketing, what you're seeing out there in different verticals of business. So let's talk a little bit about the hardware show in 2022. What was big going on there?
Yeah, so it's interesting. It was the hardware show. I'd say it felt a little bit more like a housewares or outdoor living show, because it's a lot less kind of hammers and nails, nuts and bolts than it has been in years past.
That's interesting. I wonder why. Are they seeing a bigger opportunity in those areas of that kind of business? Think about it. When you go to a Lowe's or a hardware, there's more and more of this outdoor living just taking over the store.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think it's part of the lifestyle. People still spending a lot more time at home, and certainly they've been investing more in their homes, and so, yeah, I mean, I think that's the show is definitely smaller than it has been.
Right.
Trade shows are still trying to work their way back,
Right.
but it's still great to get out there and see people in person. We had multiple clients there, and I will say that our somewhat selfishly, our client Sunjoe Snowjoe was clearly the rock star of the show, with the size of their booth and the activity that was there. And they've been, in the last couple of years since they've been working with us and employing D2C, they've really grown and acquired other companies. So it's clearly a driver of their business, and you can just tell by the energy and the activity in their booth things were going well for them. And again, they're very much home related, problem solution, electrical tools, snow blowers, power washers, and so
just about everything when it comes.
Yeah, and they've acquired now in the automotive space and leisure, like hammocks, and again outdoor entertainment, outdoor living. So it's again, the show was smaller than it has been in previous years, but definitely saw some interesting products also in like the power, generators, solar. I mean, there some smart home as well. They're clearly trying to continue that I saw at the Consumer Electronics Show and also the Houseware Show. So it was good to see that sort of thing, but it wasn't the tool. Yeah, a lot of the tool companies like we work with,
usually is. Yeah. But what's interesting about Sunjoe Snowjoe is that this is a huge multi-$100 million a year business, and they're using the content that we've produced for both their snow products and their home power washer products, and they use that to drive the retail sales at the biggest big box stores. Talk about how they use it and how much mileage they get out of it and what it means for a company like that. And you and I have been talking about, well, you specifically, but there's the direct-to-consumer campaign, then there's all the content that we put together that is response-driven that helps them in all their other channels.
Yeah, and I can talk about this when we talk about the other event I went to, but about these D2C marketers and how really what they're doing in direct-to-consumer is driving their retail business. So they're moving, I don't want to say back towards retail, but a lot of these D2C companies, once they reach a critical mass, going back to brick and mortar retail and expanding that becomes not just the opportunity, but the purpose of what they're doing. So, and it also includes home shopping and list video for Amazon listings or Walmart listings or wherever it lives in the e-commerce space. So they're clearly getting a ton out of the demonstration footage and being able to differentiate the product from the competition, to the consumers that are out there looking for it. And clearly they're increasing their brand awareness. And I know that's big goal of theirs, because a couple of years ago, when we first started talking to them, we saw the potential, but they didn't have super high brand awareness. So that's growing, but you could just tell that this advertising that they're doing and they're constantly being on the air is helping to drive all their channels, and definitely with retail. I saw multiple groups of large retail buyers that were in the booth, and again, like that's where the energy was.
And I could tell, and you and I can tell from the people that we're talking, the clients that we have, is that television is that medium that is driving all the other channels. 20 years ago, you could be on TV and you could make TV work, but you didn't have Amazon. You didn't have all these other channels. Now you have Amazon. You have your social and your digital and your retargeting and your email and your text and your SMS. Those are all channels that all lift because of television. I mean, we hear it over and over and over again, which is good. And then specifically how you can hone content for different channels to make those drive, sales specifically too, right? So
yeah, and we can talk more about connected TV and the digital, and there's all of these things are changing. Every single one of these different, if you want to call them channels or opportunities, they're evolving. Some good, some bad. In terms of the reach and what they can do, the cost certainly a big part of it.
Yep.
So it's always a big part of the puzzle. And I know all marketers are looking for better targeting, better tracking, attribution, but still from an overall credibility standpoint. And if you're targeting a certain customer, especially in the hardware, housewares category, where it's usually people that they have a home, they're taking care of something, they're not necessarily younger. This is where TV really just continues to set you apart, and it has the most media weight. And again, the marketers are trying to find that right balance between that overall just pure media weight and how do you target exactly the right customer.
Right.
And of course, like everything in our business, everything's a function of what you're spending for your media, right?
Right.
So that's the balance, and that was a big theme of everything that I talked about with our clients and with other marketers at these recent shows, is really trying to continue to evolve and have the right combination of advertising and marketing tactics.
And one of the things that I hear, and we both hear from the largest performance media buyers in the world, it is, if you don't have the right content that is branding, that is selling, not just putting it out there to say, here I am, but solve the consumer's problem with your product, create a message that is driving someone to make a decision. That's the difference when you talk about content. It's got to be response driven from the mothership, if you will, from television into every single channel specifically. And then when you aggregate all that, then you decide what's your ROAS, what's working, right?
I really feel like, as we've talked about, and just moving kind of into the connected TV discussion, is that I'm talking to a lot of the marketers. It's clearly the shiny object. Like everyone wants to do connected TV, but in talking to our media companies, all of our partners will tell you that they don't have very many clients that are succeeding on connected TV at any sort of decent scale without also running linear. So it's part of the equation, but they're not doing it just as a standalone.
Because it can't stand alone. Is that why?
Well, it's just the cost is too high. They're targeting potentially exactly the customer they want to target, but that doesn't mean that each one of those people is gonna act, right?
Exactly.
So it's costing them so much to target. See, the more honed in and targeted you want to get with connected TV, the higher your CPM goes up. And so that's the question they have, is like, do I want to target exactly the person I want to target at this cost? Or do I want to have a wider range of who I'm targeting, where I'm buying kind of an audience which is larger, but it's at a lower cost?
Right.
And maybe for some, like the CMO at NerdWallet, for example, said that they were starting to see because of their media mix modeling that they're getting better payout from the connected TV that was more highly targeted, and it was doing somewhat better than their remnant. But that's all because of the mix. But a lot of other clients I talked to, these other CMOs, were saying that we just can't, I can't pay that CPM to go target. It just doesn't pay out to do that. So, again, that some are choosing maybe not to go down that path. Some are going to things like radio and that are much less expensive. But a lot are staying with their linear TV, because that's, again, they're feeling the most push on their business overall. And yet, yes, it's harder to track individually. If going back, attribution is huge topic. It has been for many years for us, and it's in some cases it's easier to attribute with you've got some on the digital side, but when it goes back to television, it's getting harder because people see TV, maybe they go online, they buy at Amazon. So you really have to be looking at all your channels. And there's a lot of service providers at some of these conferences that are pitching new platforms for tracking.
Because they got it all
attribution.
solved.
Correct. So, you know,
Right.
that was, you know, there's a lot of interesting things there. It's not proven out yet, but it's definitely an area where people continue to invest. But it's just interesting. Everything is changing, and again, Facebook is that much more expensive now.
But
The
I was just going to
CPMs
say,
are higher. So
you're going back to that. You're talking about these D2C companies that are doing digital, and they're spending more money to reach the same audiences, and there's a point of diminishing returns where you just can't. And then you add on iOS 14 and all that, and it becomes, you just can't scale your business. And then what do? You sit happy with what you've been doing and take licks every year, or do you look for different alternatives like television to drive your D2C brand into retail, which is really ultimately is where the mother load is in a way.
yeah, I mean, if you've got a product, you know, retail
Product,
is
correct.
where you need to be.
Right.
And potentially, you know, if it's a subscription-based product, you can weigh that out between, you know, does it make sense to stay 100% D2C, or do you open it up to the retail? But again, if you are typically selling a product, again, as much as people talk about e-commerce, and it's huge. I'm not saying that it's
huge.
not, but if you can get into these full chain-wide store programs with these mass retailers, that's really where life starts to change dramatically.
So that's awesome about the hardware show, and having a client of ours be the beacon, if you will, and learning how what we've produced is driving all their other channels. And if I can say anything in this, and to your point, it's not about carrying on about our client, it's about what's really happening. It's really happening, and you witnessed it firsthand, and we'll continue to be doing that type of content for this company and other companies, but that's where it's at. If it's just pretty pictures and a little bit of story, it's not the same as a quality picture with a solution to a problem that drives somebody to act. So that was really good about hardware.